I'm gonna do a review for Blair Witch. I'm lazy and I don't like to edit a whole lot, so this is gonna be a pretty organic video. The Blair Witch was this is gonna be a negative review, just to let you know firsthand. But I want you to understand why it's a negative review. I don't want you to think that I just watched a movie and didn't like it. I'm going to give you a little bit of detail. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. I went into this expecting a pretty decent movie because I've seen Adam Wingard's, I guess that's how you say his name, Wingard's movies. The Guest, which is one of my favorite films. You're Next, which isn't one of my favorites, but it's not as bad as this movie. So I've seen a couple of his films, and I've probably seen more. I just don't know everything he's directed. But I went into this because I loved the very first Blair Witch. It was so creepy, and that's what was so great about it. You would get little bumps and scratches and twigs breaking. And there was one scene in the old Blair Witch that I thought was pretty funny because this guy he had stayed up. I can't remember his name, the character's name. He had stayed up and he said he heard laughing, like cackling, and his other friends were saying, "If I'd heard that, I would have shit my pants," which was a pretty accurate response to something like that. You're not going to want to hang around. But in this one, you go in, the premise, this guy apparently thinks his sister's still alive 17 years later, and it goes to so many lengths to show how far we've come from 1999. We know how far we've come. They tried their best to employ as much technology as possible into this film to make it, I don't know, I guess more modern, which you don't need to do that. It's modern. Anything modern in a movie makes it awful. They had a drone, which was actually kind of cool because of how ominous it sounded. It was whenever it would take off, it just kind of gave you an unsettled feeling, just the way it sounded. I know it's a drone, but it did sound creepy. And they would set up cameras on tree branches so to kind of survey the campsite, and it was useless. I don't even remember if you've seen one scene from the camera that was up on the branch. It was useless. And I'm gonna break it down. Any review I do, I'm gonna try to break it down into characters and storyline, whatever else I can, to give it some perks or some downfalls. And I'm going to go with characters on this. The characters in this were stale potato chips. They weren't awful. The acting wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. A lot of these people are no names. You've never really seen them in anything. Maybe you might be able to click on someone's Wikipedia and get a link, but that's it. But the rest are just all black lettering. You're not going to get an active link from them, so they've never been anything. But the characters in here, they're stale. There's your generic. Not teenagers. They're not teenagers. They're young people out to have a good time, and that's how it is. That's how they are. Is they just want to have a good time or be annoying is the most I could describe it. They're just very annoying. There's scenes. If you ever forget the characters' names in this movie, by God, by the end of the movie you'll remember it, because everywhere they go, you just hear them screaming each other's names. And they scream their names multiple times. Like, the writers of this movie must have just been on all caps lock, putting names down. That it was terrible writing. The movie was so loud from the screaming. The sound effects, I'm okay with sound effects being loud, but the voices, my God, they would just scream and scream and scream. I get it, you're lost in the woods, but wouldn't you draw more attention to yourself by screaming? And, well, these guys, it's a horror film, people are stupid in horror films. But it was just so annoying. Like, a deaf person could hear this movie. It was so loud, and people who could hear it would be deaf by the end of the movie. And whatever was walking around in the woods, it didn't sound like a witch, it sounded like a damn Sasquatch. It was huge. Which was kind of cool, because I think that was an interesting sound, because you'd expect to hear just cackling or little branches breaking, but this sounded like Bob the Builder was starting to tear down trees and make a house there. And speaking of house, the set, the displays, and the set was amazing. They run into the house that was in the first one. It probably wasn't the same house, but I don't know if they had set production or if they had actually found a house out in the woods. But it was a pretty dilapidated house, and you wouldn't want to stay there for more than 6 hours if you could. But that was pretty interesting. There were a few scenes, I enjoyed. I can't say anything about a score because it's found footage, and there's really no score in a found footage movie. But yeah, it was loud. There was hardly any character development whatsoever. You knew Jake, and I remember his name because of how many times it was screamed in this film. It might have been Jake. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I just kind of lost attention there for a while. No, it was John. That's right. Yeah, it was John. Just repeated that screaming in my head. It was loud. It was off-putting because you didn't know what was going on at times. And I'm a fan of found footage. I love Cloverfield. I love the first Blair Witch. Wreck 1, 2, 3, 4, all those. Maybe not 3 because it wasn't found footage. But there, jump scares are okay every now and then. I kid you not, there were probably 30 or 40 jump scares in this film that didn't need to be there. And it was so loud every time the character would pop up in front of the camera. It's like this person, and they weren't even trying to scare him. You see in a horror film, someone will jump out and try to scare you or scare that character. No, these guys were actually just running right in front of the camera. If you're out in the woods and someone else is scared and you're scared too, why scare them even more by popping up and not making yourself noticed? I'm getting frustrated talking about this movie, how bad it was. Anyways, yeah, I don't know why Rotten Tomatoes, I don't know what Rotten Tomatoes gave it. Bloody Disgusting gave it, I think it was 4.5 out of 5, or maybe 5 skulls. I don't know if that was a 16-year-old who reviewed this film, but they don't need to be reviewing for Bloody Disgusting. That was garbage. Joe Blow gave it a 90. Were these people raised on PG horror films? Like, did Goosebumps scare these kids? There's no reason for it to be reviewed that highly. I'm done ranting. I was let down. Maybe you'll like it. Which, if you do, then don't ever watch a really good horror film or you won't live. But anyways, yeah, that's it.